Hey, it's Chris and Brian here from Resolve Technology. In today's Ticket Talk, Chris and I want to talk a little bit about third-party vendor support and why it's important for your organization. A lot of times we become the middleman or the go between an organization and their third-party applications. So those applications could be cloud-hosted applications like in a browser, or they could be what we call client-server on-premise software. And lately we've run into a couple problems where this one vendor is hard to get a hold of and it just puts everybody in a sticky situation. So one of the things that you want to do when you're looking at a piece of software, whether it's these SaaS applications where you pay a monthly fee or you're paying for yearly support for an on-premise application, is you want to make sure that how big is their support organization? Don't be afraid to ask questions. I just talked to a client the other day and they think that there was only like one person in their in this application, this vendor's support office. I'm like, that can't be the case. You can't just have one support because this is like a public company. It's a lot of money for the software, things like that. But I'm not sure. A lot of times clients don't do a good job of vetting out these vendors before and asking these questions. So it's good to get your people involved. And like, we already know some of the questions we would ask because we're the ones that have to be the middleman. So we're going to make sure that, okay, ask about support. How long does it take for support? Do you guys have any service level agreement, like response times, things like that, like they do with us, because they hold us to a higher standard. But oftentimes it's hard to hold these vendors to a higher standard because in some industries, you might only have 2 or 3 options as far as running your business on software. So it's almost like it's not quite a monopoly. It might be like what they call a duopoly, or it's very tough for our clients sometimes. Chris, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, no, you made some good points because we work with various vendors and we don't know every single thing about every single piece of software. We pride ourselves on being generalists and we wear many hats in this field, but there's a lot of software that has proprietary databases, for example. Even though we know SQL, get our hands dirty with it from time to time. We're not exposed to the code or anything of that proprietary database. The best we could do is like bump a service on the server and hope that it connects again if there was some kind of connection issue. That's where these vendors come in, where there's something highly technical or a bug with their software that you need to make them aware of, or you need to find a potential workaround for. It's partly a efficiency thing too, because like, what do you want to bang your head against the wall for 7 hours when maybe you could just do a quick call to them and they're like, oh, we've seen this 100 times. It's a bug. Here's the workaround. They send you a link.
Yeah, so I just want to add, we can figure out a lot of stuff, but it's a lot faster and easier if we can just reach out to a vendor that knows what they're doing. That's a great point because they're doing it over and over repetitively.
Now, Brian, he knocked me for this, but I'm allergic to picking up the phone and calling him sometimes. I usually can handle it. I keep too much in my head, but it's good to have. And sometimes it's something simple. Like, I don't need anything specific from them, but like, hey, I just want I just want to run something by somebody. If you have that support agreement, I can go, look, this is our environment. This is where the application lives on this application server. We got this many clients and seats. I guess you have a 32-bit and a 64-bit. It looks like we're on 32. I got more information and I updated our internal knowledge bases on this software. So I can be like, hey, we were on 32-bit because that's all that existed, but this is the new one. Here are the pros and cons. When should we move over? Do you guys have any advice for me on the upgrade process? Does everybody need to be off out of the application? You know, what can go wrong essentially? And this is incredibly useful when you're onboarding new clients. So when you bring us into as your provider to handle all your support requests, when we're doing the onboarding, we're familiar with a lot of the software already, right? So we're fine. But we run into some software we've never seen before, or it's something new that hasn't been out very long. In that case, we'd probably initiate contact with them just to get an understanding of what we're getting ourselves into with it and what to expect.
Right. All excellent points, Chris. Yeah, it's just something that you have to have. You got to know what type of, and we're seeing now with the economy, people cutting back on a lot of tech jobs, that the first place they seem to want to cut is in the support of the software, which to me is ridiculous. But from a business standpoint, I see it because they already have such a chokehold on the client. It's not easy to transition to a new system. They don't make it easy. So it's a very sticky situation. So they can get away with it. But yeah, involve your IT people in that purchasing decision and make sure you ask the right questions. All right, Chris. Thanks a lot.
I got one more thing.
Oh, Okay, go ahead.
All right. So one thing that you might think you're safe, it's just to piggyback on your point there, where you might be trying to cut costs, the economy. It could end up costing you more in the end though, because we've had a client that they let their support contract lapse, but they're also on a version that's 5 or 6 years older because they didn't need the newer features when the older version was still actively supported, but it finally went end of life and it was a proprietary database. They needed some kind of specialist to come in, and without a support contract with them, it's all billable. You know what I mean? Oh, that's a cost. They have to hire a contractor, some programmer to come in to transition them if they have some kind of custom application that's nested within their line of business software. So it's just something to be aware of, that while you might save money in the short term, long term, it might come back to bite you.
Right. That's an excellent point, because if it's something like payroll, accounting related,
Yep.
that could gum up your payroll because you don't have a support contract, or you don't want to pay to update to the latest version of the software, or whatever it is. Those are real costs. And thanks, because I totally missed that one. That's a great point.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. You too.